Chapter 16 Freshman Examination. Alright, that's that. If you have any suggestions, you'd best bring them up quickly. I'll give you a day to think about it. The other classes are also splitting up into teams, but they definitely won't be as quick as you lot. Let them dawdle around and waste more of their time. When you return that piece of paper to me, you can be dismissed. When you get back, make sure to have a good rest. Nobody's allowed to go around and start a mess. The freshman assessment will start tomorrow, and my goal is for all 22 of your teams to pass. If anyone gets eliminated, they won't just have to pack their bags and leave. I'll make sure to give you some memories that you'll never forget. When the students of Class 1 saw Joey's gaze, which had suddenly become heavy, they couldn't help but fiercely shiver. There was no question about what sort of memories Joey would leave behind. They would probably be a nightmare for them. The entirety of Class 1 suddenly filled with a murderous look for a moment, even if it was just for the sake of not being abused by Teacher Joe. They wanted to do their best to pass the assessment. Who are you, Al? Wang Dong, Xia. You three stay behind for a bit. When the other students handed over the white pieces of paper that had their future direction of cultivation written on it, they left the classroom to walk back to their dorms. The only people left behind in the classroom was Who are you, Al's group of 3. At this time, the other classes were still enthusiastically explaining the division of teams for the freshman assessment. All right, give it to me. What are you hiding, Wang Dong? Joey took the 3 pieces of paper from Hua Yua's group. Wang Dong immediately lowered his head and quietly took a few steps back, hiding behind Hua Yua. As Joey looked at the 3 pieces of paper in front of her, the corners of her eyes twitched. Afterwards, she raised her head and looked towards Hua Yua, Wang Dong, and Xia. When Joey looked at them with that sharp gaze of hers, the 3 of them felt as if their bodies had been impaled. All right. You 3, let's see what you've got. She picked up one of the sheets of paper, then slammed it down onto the table. All right. Bang. Hua Yua's team of 3 simultaneously shivered. Control system. Joey said coldly. Afterwards, she took the second piece of paper and slapped it heavily onto the table. Control system. Her voice had clearly gotten louder by quite a bit. Hua Yua was somewhat astonished as he looked at Wang Dong beside him. There was no doubt about it. This second piece of paper belonged to him. Bang. Joey's last slap nearly crushed the teaching platform. And control system. This time, it was Hua Yua and Wang Dong's turn to be astonished. The two cast their gaze towards Xia, who currently had her head lowered and was fiddling with the corner of her shirt. From their first impression of her, Xia should have been an auxiliary system tool Soul Master. How had she turned into a control system Soul Master? The corner of Joey's mouth twitched following the twitching of her eye. Are you 3 brats doing this on purpose? Although the freshman assessment limits each team to having a single assault system Soul Master, it also states that you can't all have the same cultivation direction. You 3 are really good. Hey, you've all decided to be control system Soul Masters. Are you doing this on purpose? If it weren't for the fact that the competition was starting tomorrow, I would have made you run 10 hours in a row to clear your minds. Who are you, Al? You can be the first to tell me what's going on. What's gotten into you? That spiritual type martial soul of yours is extremely suitable as an auxiliary type. What's the meaning behind you becoming a control system Soul Master? Who are you, Al? Hastily replied. Teacher Joe, I've always hoped that I could become a control system Soul Master. My spiritual detection can survey the entire state of the battlefield, and in addition to that, some of the future soul rings that my spirit eyes absorb will definitely have a few attack type soul skills. Because of that, I don't want to become a simple auxiliary type Soul Master. Being a control type Soul Master should be more suitable for my future growth. Joe slowly nodded her head and said, you have a point. Control system Soul Masters have better future prospects than auxiliary type ones. The choice that you've made isn't exactly wrong. I'll consider you to have passed. Wang Dong, why are you hiding? Come on out. Even though Hua Yua and Xia wrote down the words control system, they're still a bit reasonable. But what about you? You, an assault system Soul Master, writing down the words control system. Are you deliberately looking for trouble? Wang Dong carefully took a step back from behind Hua Yua and spoke with a self-mocking smile on his face. Teacher Joe, please don't be angry. Honestly, I don't think that it's completely impossible for me to become a control system Soul Master with my strength. Right, I want to rely on my attack power to control the entire battlefield. Isn't that a type of control? Furthermore, I can fly and launch long-range attacks. It shouldn't be impossible for me to control the battlefield this way, right? You. Joey was almost angered to the point of laughing. Her eyes contained profundities as she stared at him. Don't think that I don't know your real reasoning. You just don't want to be split up with Hua Yua. I'll just call you foolish for that. You clearly have the highest cultivation in the entire class. You're barely enough to be called a genius. You're smart. Yet how you can be stupid to the point of being a drooling idiot. Just when have you ever seen an assault system and control system Soul Master split up? You're right. They'll be in different classes. However, assault system and control system Soul Masters are always together. You idiot. Change it for me right now. As soon as she finished speaking, she threw the piece of paper in her hand back towards Wang Dong. Cough, cough. Although he'd been scolded and called an idiot, Wang Dong still seemed excited. He quickly changed the words control system to assault system, before respectfully handing the paper back to Joey. Humphrey. Joey nodded angrily. She directed her gaze towards Xia last. What about you, Xia? If I'm not mistaken, your martial soul is the extremely rare Soul Crush Cauldron, which can be considered a top-ranked martial soul. The main effect of the Soul Crush Cauldron is to assist someone else. Why did you put down the words control system? Xia glanced at Wang Dong and spoke in a soft voice. Teacher Joe, my Soul Crush Cauldron is a bit different from an ordinary Soul Crush Cauldron. It can both attack and assist others. I'm even barely able to use it for defense. It can be considered a mutated Soul Crush Cauldron. It's known as a 3-life Soul Crush Cauldron. Joey was stunned for a moment. Xia, don't tell me you don't know that if your cultivation direction is too messy, it'll be disadvantageous towards your future development. I suggest that you lean towards one direction and develop from there. Even if it's a mutated martial soul, you'll still have to have a direction when you're adding soul rings. Xia nodded her head and said, I know. That's why the main abilities I've chosen for my 3-life Soul Crush Cauldron are attacking and defensive ones. Joey furrowed her brow and said, that's also unrelated to control. It could be seen that she was being extremely patient towards Xia. Xia said in a meek voice, but I have another martial soul. It can manage both support and control. At this moment, it wasn't just Joey who was astonished. Even Hua Yua and Wang Dong had widened their eyes. Wang Dong's shock was especially great. He'd always thought that he was an absolutely unrivaled figure within Class 1. He never thought that there'd actually be someone like her hidden within the class. Twin martial souls? Hua Yua and Wang Dong said it practically the same time. Xia lowered her head shyly. The look in Joey's eyes flickered a few times. This was the first time that a situation like this had occurred in Class 1, which exceeded her control. After thinking to herself for a moment, she said, fine, be a control system Soul Master if that's your wish. It'll also be easier for the 3 of you to work together in the future. Even though the freshman assessment is only your first examination within Shrek Academy, it's very important for your future cultivation path. The only way for you to have a chance to appear in the Academy's cultivation honor roll is for you to obtain a good ranking in the freshman assessment. Being in this class, I'm optimistic about the chances that you 3 have. I don't even need to mention Wang Dong and Xia. You 2 alone have talents and strengths that far exceed those of the other students. As for you, Hua Yua, even though you have an ordinary amount of strength and talent, you have a level of willpower that ordinary people aren't able to even strive for, as well as an extraordinary spiritual type martial soul. Without even taking Xia's second martial soul into account, you 3 already complement each other to a certain extent. I'll give you a mission. In the freshman assessment, you only have one target, become the champions. If you don't return as the champions, then so be it for Xia. However, you 2, on the other hand, will have to continue following me as you cultivate. Hua Yua nodded and said, Teacher Joe, even if we become the champions, I'll still be willing to follow you. Joe, you were stunned. You foolish brat. Don't you also think that I'm extremely strict? I know what they call me in private. You don't have to lie to me to make me happy. Hua Yua shook his head before saying seriously, no, Teacher Joe, I truly am willing to follow you and continue learning from you. Even though you're a bit fierce, I can still learn many more useful things from you if I do. I've occasionally observed the students from other classes. Their growth hasn't been nearly as large as our classes, at least during these past 3 months. Joey's face finally revealed the trace of a smile. Although her aged face didn't look even remotely pretty when she smiled, this was the first time that Hua Yua had felt a sense of warmth from her body. Alright, you 3 can go back and rest. Remember, you 3 definitely have to become the champions of the freshman assessment. Also, I can at least tell you 3 this. Shrek Academy has an enormous amount of wealth. Out of all the assessments the academy holds, the champions of the freshman assessment and the champions of the outer courtyard's graduation assessment receive the most generous rewards. As for what those rewards actually are, well, you'll naturally find out when you become the champions of the freshman assessment. Head back and make sure that you're in top condition. I believe in your strength. Yes. They all answered her simultaneously, before proceeding to leave the classroom together. Once they'd left, Xia Xiao looked as if she'd finally drummed up enough courage to ask something. Wang Dong, can I talk to you for a bit? However, Wang Dong waved his hand and replied, there's no need. Right now, I have to go back and prepare for tomorrow's competition. You can show us how amazing your twin martial souls are when the assessment starts. Xia Xiao. After he finished speaking, he grabbed Huo Yuao's shoulder and left. When he saw the disappointment in Xia Xiao's eyes, Huo Yuao smiled at her, causing Xia Xiao to forcefully return the smile. They were still young, so the somewhat hazy feeling that they had towards the opposite sex often was solely based on the other party's appearance. Although Wang Dong's rejection had caused her to be slightly disappointed, she didn't think much more about it. She only thought inwardly to herself, what's so amazing about you? Just wait till the assessment starts. When it starts you'll see just how amazing my abilities are. Humph. Her arrogance had always been hidden within the deep recesses of her heart. You didn't have to be so obvious when you rejected her, did you? Huo Yuao teased Wang Dong. During the past 3 months, the two had become very familiar with each other. To Huo Yuao, their intense life of cultivating had only been another way to temper his body. However, his mind had experienced an unprecedented amount of relaxation. At least here, every single student within the academy was equal. He didn't feel anything that resembled the class division that he'd previously felt when he was in the Duke's mansion. As his mind had relaxed, his personality had begun to turn much more cheerful. He was no longer that reticent and shy youth that he'd been when he'd just arrived. Wang Dong curled his lip and boastfully stated, there are several girls who've liked me. Don't tell me that I should accept all of them. After he said this, he switched to a sagely tone of voice. We're still young, thus we should be focusing everything on our studies. How can we have other thoughts like this? Huo Yuao, your mentality truly is unhealthy. Huo Yuao couldn't beat him in an argument. You win. Wang Dong laughed cunningly and said, let's go. Since we've been let out early today, you roast some fish for me to eat. We'll be formally registering for the assessment tomorrow. So I'm guessing that the assessment will only start the day after. It seems that our time to show off has finally come. Huo Yuao snapped back. You eat roasted fish every day. Will you ever get tired of it? Not only that, but the exam is the day after tomorrow. Shouldn't you polish your skills before the battle? Wang Dong humphed. You brain-dead idiot. You only know how to cultivate. Aren't you scared of becoming an idiot that only knows how to cultivate? Huo Yuao chuckled and said, as they say, the clumsy bird leaves early to reach the forest first. Since I'm untalented, the only thing that I can do to compensate for my weaknesses is work hard. I'm sure you know that the main reason my soul force was able to reach the 17th rank was because of the pills we took. I honestly think that I wouldn't have a very high chance of passing the assessment with another group. Teacher Zhou's clearly taking care of me by putting me in the same group as you and Xia Xiao. If I don't work even harder, wouldn't I simply be letting her kindness go to waste? Wang Dong curled his lips and said, your talent might be nothing much, but your martial soul is still quite good. Don't worry, with myself, a genius. Here, don't talk about a few freshmen. Even some second-year students might not be able to beat me. When the time comes, you only need to activate your spiritual detection sharing and watch me do my job from the back. With me leading our group, becoming champions will be as simple as just stretching our hands out and grabbing it. Huo Yuao reminded him, our Shrek Academy is still the #1 academy in the world. It's always been filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. You can't be too careless. However, I think that Xia Xiao's quite strong as well. When the time comes, you two absolutely have to work together. He had 4 amazing spiritual type soul skills, but Wang Dong only knew of his combined spiritual detection sharing. As for his hand-to-hand combat skills, although he had a slight foundation in the Tang Sect's secret techniques, simply relying on them and the strength of his martial soul wouldn't be enough for a fair fight. Just as Wang Dong had said, during the upcoming assessment, his greatest use would truly be his spiritual detection sharing. Even though Wang Dong could beat Huo Yuao in a war of words, he couldn't change how stubborn he was. When the two of them returned to their dorm room, they ended up meditating and cultivating. However, Huo Yuao promised Wang Dong that he'd roast a few extra fish for him after the assessment. Huo Yuao's 17th ranked soul force could already condense into a white stream inside Huo Yuao's body. As it traveled throughout his body, following the circulation path of the mysterious heaven technique, it seemed to pierce through his entire body, warming up his passageways. Not only was it comfortable, it also brought about an obvious improvement in Huo Yuao's cultivation. After 3 months of bitter cultivation, Huo Yuao was able to faintly sense that his passageways had expanded by a large amount. This was due, in part, to the subtle effects of the mysterious water pill, as well as to the nourishing effect of the mysterious heaven technique that he discovered by chance. Furthermore, his passageways were extremely elastic and durable now. In terms of physiques, Huo Yuao was no longer inferior to anyone of the same age as him. However, the fact that he'd stepped onto the right path rather late was undeniable. It wasn't very likely that he'd catch up to Wang Dong, hence, he could only choose to improve alongside Wang Dong. With his current cultivation speed, Huo Yuao was confident that he could break into the 20th rank by the time he graduated as a first-year student, thereby obtaining a second soul ring. According to his brother Sky Dream, his strength would rapidly soar when he obtained his second soul ring, especially when his ice-type martial soul truly had its own abilities. Huo Yuao looked forward to that moment very much. When that happened, he'd definitely be able to help Wang Dong a lot more when they fought side by side. Time always passed extremely the fastest during meditation. Evening soon arrived. Like yesterday, Huo Yuao walked over to the canteen to clean his fish before he headed towards the academy's entrance. The flow of people at the academy's entrance had clearly been reduced. Perhaps it was due to the upcoming freshman assessment, but a majority of the freshmen felt a sense of urgency, causing them to bitterly cultivate inside of their dorm rooms. However, Huo Yuao's business wasn't affected by this at all. When he arrived, a queue had already formed, with the person in front being, amazingly, Shu Sanchi. Ding. Shu Sanchi handed Huo Yuao a silver soul coin and said, no need to hand me any change, just make sure to give me a big fish. Huo Yuao chuckled and replied, big brother Shu, nothing can stop you, can it? The previous rift between the two had already closed. After beginning to see each other every day, they'd long become familiar with each other. After he became familiar with Shu Sanchi, Huo Yuao discovered that, even though he wasn't as gentle as Bei Bei, and even though he had a bit of a violent temper and a fiery disposition, he was still extremely sincere with his friendships. Shu Sanchi laughed mischievously. Who was the one that made me like what you roast? If I don't at least get a bite of this every night, my dinner won't taste delicious at all. I've eaten many roasted fish in the past, but not a single person was able to control the fire as well as you do. Even Jiang Nanan has praised your roasting technique. Right, I've heard that the freshman assessment's about to start. Huo Yuao nodded his head a few times and replied, yeah? Shu Sanchi said, then you have to work hard. You can't get eliminated. If you do, I won't be able to eat any more roasted fish. Even now, he still didn't know that Huo Yuao had been behind Bei Bei's victory during their match. He only knew that Huo Yuao's talent was ordinary, but that he could roast fish extremely well. Actually, Huo Yuao's fame in Shrek Academy for his roasted fish was definitely greater than fame for his strength. Little Shu. At this moment, a crisp voice suddenly rang out. When Shu Sanchi heard this voice, he immediately began to shiver. Huo Yuao even saw a few hints of fear, but even more than that, helplessness, appear within his eyes. The other diners that had queued up behind Shu Sanchi instantly quieted down. A girl walked out from the academy's entrance with slow steps, causing the crowd to open up a path for her in a very natural manner, so much so that they didn't even deign to look at her. They all lowered their heads as she passed. Her appearance clearly exceeded that of Jiang Nanan's appearance last time. When Huo Yuao raised his head to see who the girl was, he discovered that the newcomer was a red-clothed woman. Her body was slender and well-proportioned, with the first thing that most people would notice when looking at her being her slightly exaggerated peaks that were firm, towering, and lustful. Her waist was extremely slim, with that slimness continuing all the way down to her thighs, where it suddenly arced out. Her legs were perfectly straight and round, while at the same time a strong aura of youthfulness that was emanated by her assaulted one's senses. However, her facial features couldn't clearly be seen. She wore a red veil over her face. However, one could tell that she was definitely a beauty from just her eyes alone. Her faintly pink eyes could easily make one feel as if his soul had been swept away. Fortunately, her gaze was extremely cold, which slightly suppressed the glow of rapture in her eyes that was capable of penetrating into one's bones. Shu Sanqi clearly seemed to recognize her. After summoning up some courage, he turned around. However, he didn't look directly into her eyes. He lowered his head slightly instead, and replied, Sister Shadow. At this moment, Hua Yuao was even more astonished. Shu Sanqi was an untamable person with quite a fiery disposition, who had an even higher status than Bei Bei in the outer courtyard due to him being a 5th-year student. Because of his great talent, many 6th-year students were somewhat reverent of him. Even teachers wouldn't cause him to act like this. Just who is this red-clothed girl? After looking at the girl closely, both Hua Yuao and Wang Dong felt as if she looked slightly familiar for some reason. The red-clothed girl looked over at Hua Yuao's oven, then slowly walked up to Shu Sanqi and said, Little Shu, you've come to eat roasted fish. Shu Sanqi nodded his head and said, Yeah, Hua Yuao's roasted fish tastes extraordinary. It's really tasty. Really tasty. A slight trace of curiosity appeared on the red-clothed girl's eyes, and she said to Hua Yuao, let me try one. She wasn't the type of fairy that wouldn't eat the food of common mortals. Practically all of her days were spent cultivating, so she was naturally excited when she found something new. Hua Yuao subconsciously replied, I'm sorry, I only sell 30 fish a day. 30 people have already queued up today, so please come earlier on tomorrow. These exact words had been uttered by him countless times before. However, when his voice rang out this time, practically everyone standing in the queue simultaneously raised their heads to look at him with terrified expressions. Even Shu Sanqi wasn't an exception. Following that, the people who'd been queued behind Shu Sanqi loudly dispersed and walked away as fast as they could, causing Hua Yuao to become even more astonished. The red-clothed girl smiled and said, Okay, there's no one left in the queue now. I think that I should be able to eat one now, right? Shu Sanqi continuously made a few gestures to Hua Yuao with his eyes. Hua Yuao wasn't someone who didn't understand how things worked. After nodding his head, he continued to roast his fish seriously. However, Wang Dong, who was at his side, was somewhat indignant. Who are you? Why did you disturb our business? The red-clothed girl raised her right hand, exposing her tender hand. On it, there was a large blood-like crimson ruby that was absolutely beautiful. The ruby flashed, causing a single gold soul coin to appear in her hand. She then passed it to Wang Dong and said, I'll take all of today's roasted fish. Wang Dong wasn't polite at all as he took the gold soul coin. Afterwards, he didn't utter another word. Although this red-clothed girl was threatening to the point of scaring so many people away, she didn't look unreasonable. Furthermore, he felt that something was wrong. A few traces of fear towards this red-clothed girl had actually appeared in his heart. However, Hua Yuao honestly replied, I don't need this much money. My roasted fish only cost 5 copper soul coins apiece. The red-clothed girl seemed as if she wasn't willing to talk with him anymore. She indifferently said, just take it as a deposit. Just don't ask me for money if I want to eat here in the future. Okay. Hua Yuao nodded and replied while simultaneously continuing to carefully roast fish. The red-clothed girl originally looked as if she'd come to find Shu Sanqi, but she didn't even seem to care about Shu Sanqi now. Instead, she was now focusing on Hua Yuao as he roasted fish. After a short period of time, she let out a soft cry of surprise. Your fire controlling technique is this perfect. Do you have a fire-type martial soul? She herself was an expert in the field of fire, so she was naturally able to see that Hua Yuao's fire control while he was roasting the fish had reached the apex of precision. Hua Yuao simply shook his head. After a short period of time, he finished roasting the first 4 fish. Since nobody else was coming today, Hua Yuao simply passed 2 to the red-clothed girl and 2 to Shu Sanqi. In reality, he didn't just buy 30 mackerels every day. Any extra fish were naturally left to Tang Yo and Wang Dong. When Shu Sanqi had first seen the red-clothed girl, he had clearly been somewhat distressed. He wasn't even as passionate as he normally was whilst eating his roasted fish. On the other hand, the red-clothed girl slowly raised her veil, revealing her absolutely beautiful face, as she slowly began to eat the roasted fish. Her movements were extremely graceful as she carefully ate the fish. However, Hua Yuao and Wang Dong were stunned by the mysterious disappearance of the fish bones from her hand after she'd finished eating the fish. She'd clearly used her hands to eat the fish, yet there weren't any oil stains on her hand at all. Just what power was this? Hua Yuao and Wang Dong glanced at each other, both seeing the shock reflected in each other's eyes. The 2 pieces of roasted fish were quickly finished by her. When she finished, the red-clothed girl nodded at Hua Yuao and said, Your roasted fish are very tasty. They seem to have been seriously made. Now then, let me see your martial soul. Her words had an irrefutable tone to them. Ever since the evil fire in her body had been suppressed by that mysterious ice element, she hadn't disturbed by her martial soul's overbearing demonism for a full 3 months. However, that icy aura had gradually been refined by her martial soul's phoenix flames as time passed, causing a backlash to gradually appear. The reason that she was looking for Shu Sanqi was because of his mysterious underworld turtle, which was currently the best water-type martial soul in the academy. If she borrowed a certain amount of his strength, she could suppress the evil fire in her body. To Shu Sanqi, this process was just like tempering iron into steel. It only brought benefits. However, it was extremely painful. That was why Shu Sanqi had immediately had a bitter expression when he saw her. Furthermore, this wasn't the first time that she tormented him like this. Hua Yuao eyebrows furrowed slightly, while Wang Dong had an indignant look on his face. However, he was stopped by Hua Yuao's raised hand. He slowly raised his head and looked towards the red-clothed girl. After that, a faint golden light emerged in his eyes. As that happened, a sheen of purple rippled through his deep blue eyes. Of all the secret techniques he'd learned from the Tang sect, Hua Yuao's greatest improvement lay in the purple demon eyes. Whenever he absorbed the purple chi that rose from the east every morning, his spirit eyes would naturally generate a siphoning effect. For him, a single day's worth of cultivating the purple demon eyes was better than 10 days worth of cultivation for Bei Bei and Tanya. Because of this, his purple demon eyes had improved extremely quick. The red-clothed girl raised her long eyebrows slightly when she sensed Hua Yuao's mysterious spiritual detection sharing. Following the increase in his cultivation, the strength of Hua Yuao's soul ring had gradually begun to increase. As per the Sky Dream Iceworm's words, the strength of his tolerance would determine how much strength his first soul ring could manifest. In the beginning, although his first soul ring contained 4 soul skills within it, their effects had only been equivalent to that of a 400-year soul ring. However, his first soul ring now possessed the power of a soul ring that was around 600 years, with the maximum range of his spiritual detection and his spiritual interference now reaching a diameter of 50 meters. Furthermore, the effects of these skills were even more detailed than they had previously been. Part of the first seal that the Sky Dream Iceworms had made within Hua Yuao's body had already been unlocked. As long as Hua Yuao continued to make breakthroughs in his cultivation, the Sky Dream Iceworm's powerful origin energy would automatically increase the strength of his first soul ring. This was something that other soul masters couldn't even dare to dream about. His first soul ring would only continue to grow more terrifying as his cultivation level rose. The Sky Dream Iceworm couldn't give Hua Yuao an instant power boost, but it had given him an astonishingly bright future. Hua Yuao kept his spiritual detection sharing active for about 10 seconds before withdrawing it. After a few moments of what seemed to be shock, the red-clothed girl nodded towards Hua Yuao. She then gazed deeply at the single white soul ring that rose up from his feet and said, "That's the strongest 10-year soul ring I've ever seen." Hua Yuao replied in a very natural manner, "It's still only a 10-year soul ring." The red-clothed girl laughed softly and said, "Ma Xiaotao, nice to meet you. If I have the chance, I'll come back again to eat your roasted fish. Little Shu, let's go." Shu Sanqi had a pained expression as he said, "Sister Xiaotao, can you please be a bit more gentle today?" Ma Xiaotao gave him an indifferent glance, causing him to immediately correct himself. "I don't have any problems, none at all." As he spoke, he hurriedly walked in front of Ma Xiaotao and gestured for her to continue. Only after the two had entered the academy did Wang Dong mutter, "Her name's really tacky." Hua Yuao said in response, "Can a name prove anything? Don't you think that she seemed a bit familiar?" Wang Dong was suddenly startled. She couldn't be that person we met at the lake last time, could she? She was also wearing red clothes. Could she be a disciple of the inner courtyard? Huo Yuao shrugged his shoulders in response, expressing his doubt. A group of people came rushing back and queued at his stall as soon as Ma Xiaotao and Xu Sanqi had left. The person in front, who happened to be a fourth-year student, overheard the conversation between the two. He immediately whispered, "Junior classmen, you need to quiet down a bit. You can't just talk about disciples from the inner courtyard like that, especially Senior Xiaotao." Huo Yuao asked in astonishment, "She's really from the inner courtyard?" The upperclassman replied, "Obviously. Within Shrek Academy, red-clothed students are all seniors from the inner courtyard. I don't know how many people there are in the inner courtyard, but seniors from the inner courtyard rarely come out. There's also a ranking system in the inner courtyard, causing the competition there to be extremely intense. Despite how intense it is, Senior Xiaotao is one of the top 10 ranked students inside of the inner courtyard. Her strength is definitely not something that we can compare to. Senior Xu Sanqi seems to have a very good relationship with Senior Xiaotao. Thus he might get a recommendation from Senior Xiaotao to the inner courtyard in the future, if he's lucky." Wang Dong asked with curiosity, "You need a recommendation to enter the inner courtyard?" The upperclassman replied, "That's obvious. Well, I'm not entirely clear about the specific procedures one must follow to enter the inner courtyard. Supposedly, every single student from the outer courtyard that wants to enter the inner courtyard must obtain a recommendation from a student from the inner courtyard." Huo Yuao was able to finish selling the rest of his fish without a hitch. By the time he was about to sell the last of them, Bei Bei and Tanya arrived side by side. Huo Yuao took out the fish that he'd saved for them beforehand to treat them to a few roasted fish. "Junior brother, the freshman assessment is about to start. I've just got obtained accurate info. You'll be registering in the morning, while the assessment will start in the afternoon. You have to prepare well." Bei Bei's demeanor was still as gentle as before. Huo Yuao nodded and said, "I'll definitely work hard to pass the assessment." Bei Bei laughed, while Tanya said, "Little Yuao, even if I'm your teacher, I can't just eat this many of your roasted fish for free. I'll give you something nice. You can use it when the time arises." As she spoke, she handed something that resembled a pouch to Huo Yuao. "When you get back to your dorm room, store what's inside in your 24 moonlit bridges. Make sure to be careful when you're using it. Don't hit any vital points. Also, you'll need to start learning how to refine soul tools after the assessment. At that time, I'll teach you a few more secret techniques. Thank you, Teacher Xiaoya." Huo Yuao received the pouch, roughly able to guess what was inside. Wang Dong had a curious look on his face. He proceeded to ask, "Teacher Xiaoya, I don't think that you can use soul tools during the freshman assessment, right?" Tang unhappily replied, "What soul tools? Don't you know what the Tang sect is famous for?" When Huo Yuao and Wang Dong returned to their dorm room and opened the pouch, they were shocked. It was filled with hidden weapons. There were throwing knives, throwing needles, bone-piercing needles, as well as a dozen plus other types of hidden weapons. Furthermore, there were over 100 of each of them. It was basically a warehouse for hidden weapons. It was extremely obvious that Tang had prepared these hidden weapons for Huo Yuao since his martial soul had no way to attack. During these past 3 months, Huo Yuao had slightly improved in his understanding of the secret techniques of the Tang sect, and had even started to skim through the hidden weapon hundreds operations. He was extremely bright and studious, which resulted in him mastering a few techniques. He didn't have any problems using hidden weapons in a basic fashion. To these new students with only 1 or 2 soul rings, these hidden weapons were still a large threat. As Wang Dong gazed at Huo Yuao's hidden weapons, he couldn't help but curl his lips and say, "Your teacher Xiaoya is clearly looking down on me. With me there won't even be a need for you to make a move." Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.